Okay, so I suppose I kind of fell into it. I did an English degree. When I finished my degree, like many people who did an arts degree, I thought, what am I going to do now? And but as a young person, and especially as a teenager, I can remember watching documentaries on telly. And you may know from my work, but from my work, most of my work is about quite difficult social issue-based stuff. And when I left university, I wanted to do something that I thought I could change the world and make a difference and, you know, do something about social justice. And I'm quite a creative person. And so I started working radio, and then I moved over into production, TV production. And then I've just kind of worked my way up, really. So for me, the reason that I do the work that I do is because I think that telly is an amazing medium. I love the fact that I can reach people sitting at home who other people may not be able to reach. So, and I think that sometimes, you know, I always think, I sort of say to myself, if I can just change one person's mind or help one person, I've done my job. So, you know, I've worked on child sexual exploitation, I've worked on domestic abuse, I've worked on just making a film at the minute about domestic violence and the effects on children, working with children. And so for me, the thing that really keeps me going is the fact that actually just helping, you know, to change people's minds or change people to think differently about things is really why I do it. And it is hard, and sometimes I think, you know, it's, you know, to kind of keep going on the juggernaut of there's always another social issue, you know, and I get contacted all the time saying, could you look at this, could you do that? And, you know, I think for me, a lot of people always say, how do you, you know, do you have therapy, do you have a counsellor? And I don't. I'm very choosy about who I work with, and you know, I've got a really great support system myself. Where my starting point is always, do I care about this subject, and do I feel that the people in my film are going to have some sort of resonance with the audience? And I think for me, a lot of my work has been it's all been mainstream, but it's always about trying to, you know, trying to bring it into the public view. I think for me in the films that I make, I think one of my best qualities is that I just really like people. And I don't mind going round to someone's house and spending 3 hours and having a cup of tea, because that's how I build up trust. So for me, in the work that I do, actually the skill that I really bring in both to, you know, in terms of access to organisations, but to the people that are really at the heart of my films, is a relationship. You have to be careful, and you have to think about who's in your film and what you're doing it for, don't you? But, you know, a good example, for example, is a film I made a couple of years ago for the BBC called Behind Closed Doors. And it was commissioned as a 10:35 single doc for BBC One. And in the end, it went out at 9 o'clock. It was extremely hard hitting. And, you know, we didn't hold anything back. Charlotte Moore and the docs team wanted something that was very frontline and telling the truth about domestic abuse. And, you know, 3.1 million people watched that film live. And it's helped countless thousands of people around the world, you know, and it's been shown all over the world. So I feel like, you know, you do have to strike a balance. The film that I'm making at the moment, which is about the effects on children, you know, you have to be really mindful of, you know, you're working with little people, and, you know, we're telling the story from their point of view. So of course we have to think about that. And, you know, my duty of care as a producer and as a director in these films is something that I hold absolutely at the top of the list, you know. So if something happened, we couldn't use that contributor, we couldn't, you know, show that piece of footage, I wouldn't have any problem with taking it out, because for me, in these very difficult circumstances, you know, our duty of care comes first, really. So Catching a Killer was an extraordinary commission. Nick Mersky at Channel 4, we had access that I'd negotiated to Thames Valley Police Murder Team, major crimes team they're called. And Nick had said, this is great access, we did a little pilot. And he just did an extraordinary commission. So he said, I just want you to go and make 4 films. They can be, they need to be single narrative, so they needed to be about one case each. He said, I don't really care how long they are, and I don't care when you deliver. So obviously that's a director's dream, isn't it? So for us, we had, you know, Catching a Killer has been made by you know, not a huge team actually, probably about 10 of us, extremely talented, brilliant people. And, you know, we recruited our team of, you know, producers who were going to be on the ground. And Natalie's case came along second. We'd already filmed one case, and we were only about 3 or 4 weeks into, you know, actually having the whole thing up and running. And, you know, sometimes there's just, you know, there's an instinct. So we got a phone call from the police. The arrangement we had with the police, and we still have with the police, is that they'll ring us if they've got a case that they think we might be interested in. And so they rang us, they said, we've got a very unusual case here. A woman has vanished into thin air and we have arrested her partner. Are you interested? We're like, yes. So, you know, we got the phone call with enough time to send a team down to the first briefing. He was arrested at 6 o'clock in the morning and we were there at 8:30 in the morning for the first briefing. So for Natalie, that film and that story just unfolded. And I think for us as all the directors on those films, you know, we don't know what we're going to get. We get a phone call and, you know, it's observational filming. So they're extraordinary films because there's no commentary. And, you know, we just don't know. We don't know which way it's going to go. So we have to have enough people on the ground to, you know, so at times I had 10 people in 10 different places on that film. And, but what emerged as we got to know more about the story was that actually it was a love story. Natalie had been in a deeply coercively controlling relationship for 10 years, and she'd found somebody that loved her and treated her well, and she told her partner she was leaving. And you know, for anyone that knows anything about domestic violence, that is the most unsafe time for a person. Statistically, women, mainly women, are killed at that point. And so, but it was a love story. Natalie had found somebody and she was going to go, and Paul Hemming killed her. So one of the things I think that was really important about that film was that we were able to, you know, I was able to go and talk to the family really early on about what I wanted to do and why we were doing it. So we have extraordinary access to the family in that film. And, you know, as the case develops, you know, what we want to do is to build up trust with people, both, as I say, with organisations that we're working with and with, you know, family members or whoever has been affected. And for me as a director, that is the most important thing that I can do, is because it's so tricky, it's so sensitive. We know tons of confidential information that, you know, we can't afford. You know, if I had anybody on my team that was going to tweet something, you know, can you imagine? So, and it is about a relationship. So yes, we built up, and we still have an incredible relationship with that team. And the kind of the core team in that investigation involved 2 family liaison officers who were just wonderful, and they understood what we were trying to do, and they were brilliant. They were brilliant, and actually, it was interesting when we made the film, you know, the senior investigating officer said, you know, it was really good for me to see what my officers do, because of course they're not a fly on the wall to those conversations, and we were. So they were wonderful, and, you know, they were, in terms of, you know, I've worked in lots of places where the access is, you know, you can go far and only so far. But in that case, and, you know, in the access that we've got there, you know, we discussed how could we go to the scene if and when the body was going to be found, Natalie's body was going to be found. How would we do that? How would we go and, you know, film a scene where, you know, the family liaison officers are telling mum that they've found Natalie? You know, all of those things are really difficult, and you have to manage them properly, because if you do upset somebody, you know, you're not going to get invited back in, and you're going to probably get thrown out of whatever you're trying to do. So it's very important that we manage that properly. I mean, I'm proud of so much. It's phenomenal achievement, both for us as a production team at True Vision, but also for the police, for that major crimes unit. You know, they have been incredible, and, you know, I think that it's a really good example of a working relationship that's worked. And, you know, the thing for me that I'm most proud of with Natalie's film is that we've been able to raise the issues around coercive control, and her family and her, you know, her brothers and sisters have been so supportive, and they've gone on and, you know, really been able to use that film to raise awareness. So personally, for me, for that film, I'm so proud that we've been able to actually give a legacy to Natalie's children, that actually we've told the truth about that investigation for her children who were so little at the time, but as they grow up there's a record of actually what happened. And I think for each of us, I think that one of the things about our films at True Vision is that we're not just doing police procedurals. What we want to do is to try and find a wider social issue relating to each case, and we've done that, you know. So we've looked at, you know, sort of a real rapid decline into, you know, a place of, you know, difficulty in terms of mental health. We've looked at a young lad who was shot, who was, you know, got involved in a gang, wrong place, wrong time, you know. And as the films are coming out, we're looking at all sorts of different social issues. So, you know, that I'm immensely proud of the series, and we're so delighted to be nominated.